Good evening, sports fans, and welcome to the All Balls Sports Show, a discussion of any and all sports, local, regional, and national. And now, here are your hosts, Dan James, Eddie Bobo, Ty Cobb, and the coach, Vance Ballou.
Thank you, Bill Jones. Don't even know why we mentioned Ty Cobb's name. He hasn't showed up in months.
He's here in spirit.
Preds are playing now.
You want to go with that? That's fine. That's fine.
Well, we did right.
We do have Maurice Patton. We have Chip Matlock. We have Eddie Bobo. We have Chip Walters, the voice of the MTSU Blue Raiders.
The Vober doesn't come off the tongue kind of like the Vite, the voice of the Titans, But, yeah. It's nice to have Chip in the house, isn't it?
First of all, what I want to do is promote your real estate, because every Friday, I see the
I know you do, because you are my most loyal liker of things on my real estate Facebook page.
I get some very good tips off of what you do. Now, every Friday, you have somebody different that's on.
Mm-hmm. I do a video called the Friday Five,
right,
and I put it on my real estate Facebook page, and it could be probably 75% of the topics are within real estate. It could be everything from a lender to a home inspector to a termite guy to whatever, and sometimes it's just other issues. I mean, I had last 2 weeks I've had a really good one with the guy from the extension office talking about your yard and how to save your grass after the September drought we had and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, real estate's been really good, and folks I'd love for you to come by my website. As a matter of fact, if you are within the sound of YouTube here on this show, and go to my website, which is choosechip.net, and register as a user. I'm not going to bombard you, but if you register as a user and put a little note that here's where you found it, and, well, I'll know it was because during this time period, kind of. But I'm going to give away a couple tickets to the next middle home football game. That will be against the Rice Owls, and it will be our Salute to Veterans game.
Cool.
So choosechip.net, register as a user. We'll give away some tickets.
Very good.
I'll contact them back. So
now you do have listings in this area in addition to Murfreesboro, Rutherford County.
I work this area. Yes, I've worked with buyers and stuff. I would love more listings down here. So again, if you're within the sound of YouTube, give me a call. Go to my website. I want to do more business down in this, but a lot of my business is obviously in Rutherford County. For some reason, I have done a bunch of stuff over near Manchester and that part of Coffee County, all the way through Bedford and up through Cannon and DeKalb up around Center Hill Lake, and that's kind of, I mean, Murfreesboro is the home site right now, but yeah,
Murfreesboro, 150,000 people saw that
just
on the report yesterday.
Yeah, that's about right. Well, I had not heard 150 yet. I heard we were about 140,000 in the county. Rutherford County now is over 300,000, and they expect both of those numbers to double by 2035.
Ain't the way it was.
So,
I was up there in 72, I tell you.
Nope.
I tell you what,
Mo and I were there. It was maybe the university was about 12,000 when we were in school.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
10 when I was in there.
But I tell you what, if you try to get from I-24 down Old Fort into town, you may pass all 300,000 of those folks right there.
My old joke used to be that everybody in town at 5 o'clock on Friday was at Broad and Memorial trying to turn left, and but now that since they have opened.
The Blue Raider Bridge?
Yeah, also known as Bob, the bridge over Broad. Bob, it is now. I mean, the traffic does flow a whole lot better through there, but still, Old Fort Parkway, Broad Street, Medical Center Parkway, they're all. It's all busy, but I'm not sure it's as busy as Nashville Highway coming in on the afternoon, but it's close.
Got to give you a story.
Yeah.
When I was covering city council for WGNS years and years ago, when I was, I have to say, the youngest news director in the state of Tennessee at age 17.
Okay.
Very young, very inexperienced, but I knew the characters on the city council pretty well. And I knew one of them who was, let's just say he was questionable at best. Shall not give his name because I don't want to end up in a lawsuit, even this many years later. but he used the phrase, and since we're not FCC regulated, he used the phrase, "We don't need no condoms on Old Fart Parkway."
Oh, gosh.
And a friend of mine who worked for WMOT at that time, they were also covering news. He looked at me and said, "Did he just say what I thought he said?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Are you going to use it?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to use it," because I was recording everything at that time.
Right.
And so the next morning on the 7 o'clock news, that it played. And I got called into the boss's office a little shortly after he came in at 8 o'clock. Because he got a call at home.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah.
He says, "You can't run that again at noon." I said, "Oh, okay." Hell, I ran it again at noon. But anyway, yeah. We don't need no condoms on Old Fart Parkway.
Porkway. There we go.
I'll tell you later who it was. You don't know exactly what I'm talking about. But that was a long time ago, like 73, maybe it was.
Okay, yeah.
That was a long time ago, Dan.
Yeah, I know.
The
It
dark
was a long
ages.
time ago. The old days in the borough when we had a 10,000 student population.
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't quite 10,000 at that time. Now we're at about 23 now. It got up to as high as about 27, and it was like, okay, we just.
But is that a lot of people coming in? A lot of.
Well, and this is one thing. We always used to hear the phrase suitcase college or commuter school. That doesn't exist anywhere anymore because the world is so different. It used to be. I mean, even when Mo and I were in school, you would see taillights on Friday from about noon to 4 o'clock. Yeah. Now the thing is, you got. Well, and this is a total guesstimate. When we were all in school, probably, I don't know, 15, 20% stayed in town and had jobs there. Everybody else went home to their hometown and had jobs. Well, now they consume education so much differently than we did. So much of it's online. Actually, when you go on campus, there doesn't even feel to be as many people as there was back in our day because there's so much stuff that's online, and they all there's only of those 22,000, there's only about 4,000 that live on campus, but there's probably about 15,000 that live within a mile of campus or around with all the apartments that are there. So And their lifestyle is totally different than what we were used to back in the 70s and 80s, in that you went to school 5 days a week and you got in your car and you went home and let mom wash your clothes. They're much more independent than we ever thought about being in those days. And they're, again, the lifestyle is just totally different for kids that age as they were kids when we were that age.
Yeah.
Unless you were a slave to the radio station you worked for 6 days a week, and then came home on Sunday and washed your clothes.
That's right.
and turn around and drive back.
Yeah.
But I remember
drive back on Sunday night. That's right.
I remember back in late 80s, early 90s, like May graduation, it was almost like you rolled up the sidewalks and half the town left.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was managing a grocery store up there.
Yeah.
At the time, and
except for those of us who stayed and went to the 2-week intersession.
That's right. Intersession was.
You crammed 3 months of knowledge
in 2 weeks,
and you got 3 hours credit though. That was the key thing. But I mean, still, graduation days. I mean, and you talk about when you were there running the grocery store. Now in May and in December, they have 2. They have one at 9 in the morning, one at 2 in the afternoon, because there's so many graduates. And it's still a good thing to be running a restaurant on days like that, because you can't find a spot anywhere.
Got that right. Yeah, I've been through one of those.
Football the weekend.
Well, kind of give folks a little update where we are in football right now, and we can spend some time talking about last week, which was crazy with the rain that came at halftime, and Middle ended up winning 50-17 after being down 3 at the half, scored 36 unanswered in the second half. But what it is, in the Eastern Division of Conference USA, Western Kentucky, I will say surprisingly, is 4-1, and they have done it with defense, and which is a little unusual for them, but they are what they are. They're 4-1. You've got Marshall and FAU. Each are 3-1 right now. Middle has beaten Marshall, lost to FAU, and then Middle is a game back in the loss column at 2-2. So, and also at 3-5, a week or so ago things were looking not real great, and then it's amazing what one win will do for you and put you back in a position. Now, Middle goes to Charlotte this week, takes on Charlotte, who they score a lot of points, but they give up a ton of points, and they have won 1 in the league, and they've won 3 overall. So it's going to be an interesting matchup this weekend when Middle goes there. Then you've got 2 home games. Well, the Hall of Famer himself. They can make it. They can make an entrance. So. Hey, you brought that on yourself right there, buddy. No, but after Charlotte's a real key game, I think, because then you come home. You've got Rice and Old Dominion. Neither have won a game in the league, which if you can.
But that's not indicative
right.
of anything. Right,
exactly. But the thing is, you feel like on paper you should be in a better position there, and Middle's been pretty good at home. So you go to Charlotte, who they've got the really good running back who, had a great game against Tennessee a couple of years ago. He's their all-time rusher named Benny LeMay. And, of course, all of a sudden their quarterback decides to start playing really good, and he was a Conference USA Player of the Week this week. So it's not a pushover by any stretch of the imagination. It'll be a tough game on the road, and Middle has never lost to Charlotte, but they're a young program. Jerry Richardson inserted about $15 million into their program when they started it from scratch, and they have a new head coach this year, Will Healy, who was at Austin Peay. Right, did a great job at Austin Peay, and he has. They have gotten better offensively with him there, and they play very, very hard. Which that's whether you're winning, losing, or whatever. I think Vance will tell you if other coaches look at your team and say, "Boy, your guys play hard," that's about as good a compliment as you can get. And Coach Stock talked about that this week. So this week's a real key game, road game. Then you get the 2 home games, and then Thanksgiving weekend you go to Western, and that depending on how things play out, that could have a lot of juice to it that weekend, which could include everything from bowl bids to a piece of the Eastern Division title or something. We'll just have to see. But it's the home stretch, and Middle has been really, really good in November under Coach Stock. So we'll see. It all starts this week.
Now the trial and tribulations of a broadcaster. We were just talking about that a while ago. You've got overlap between basketball.
Yes, I do.
Travel considerations included.
Well, as a matter of fact, I had lunch with our head basketball coach today just to say, give me some of your ideas on this. So, because he's a really bright guy and a really good friend of mine, Nick, our new head coach, Nick McDevitt. And, we have – they keep inching – basketball season earlier and earlier. Matter of fact, our first game, real game, will be Tuesday at 11 a.m. They play a game for county school kids at 11 a.m., and there will be 10,000 high-pitched voices in Murphy Center on Tuesday, and they open up with Maryville College that day. But then 2 weeks later, we go to Myrtle Beach and are in the Myrtle Beach Invitational with Villanova, Mississippi State, Tulane. That's who's on our side of the bracket. And I haven't started worrying about who's on the other side of the bracket yet. But we open with Villanova down there. And that tournament plays on Thursday, Friday, Sunday with no games on Saturday. Well, we're just close enough for me to try to get home to broadcast a football game on Saturday, the 23rd, which it'll be a day game, which that'll be good. And I've got all my combinations in basketball of win-loss, win-win, loss-win, loss-loss of game times and all that kind of stuff. So my plan is to do 2 games on Thursday and Friday, drive back to Murfreesboro which I should get home about 10 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, which that's not bad, and then do a football game on Saturday, and then as you and I spoke before, I am working my angles on trying to get back down to Myrtle Beach without having to drive. But
He and I know a lot of pilots.
we know a lot of
Well,
pilot friends. So
That's what I was
and
thinking.
again, for those folks who are watching on in YouTube land.
Well, don't you know somebody in the aerospace department over
Well,
there?
that phone call and probably delivery of some coffee is going to happen here in the next few days.
You go to choosechip.net. If
That's
you
right.
have a charter you'd be more than happy to give him, he'll take it.
That's right. Well, yeah, I'll get you in the ball game, and but we'll So that goes on, and then we also have another overlap in March with basketball and baseball. But on Thanksgiving weekend, we've got football in Bowling Green at 1 o'clock against Western, and then a 7:30 basketball game in Murfreesboro against Belmont. So, and as long as we don't go, 10 overtimes in Bowling Green, then I should be able to get back in time. But Middle's most common overtime opponent out of 10 overtime games they have played, 4 have been against the Hilltoppers.
Western.
So anyway, yeah. So that's going on. That is the November. We just in our world of college athletics, we just call it the overlap.
So there is no choice of saying, we'll just blow that Belmont MTSU game off. And
No, I will say this, and Mo knows a really good friend of both of ours, Jeff Him, who does the Sounds games, who is an outstanding play-by-play guy. Jeff and Dick Palmer are my backups.
Your backup.
Dick Palmer's actually going to want to coach stock shows while I'm in Myrtle for that basketball tournament. Jeff has trudged to the far outpost of Anchorage, Alaska, to do Blue Raider basketball games before and other spots. So Jeff he and I've talked this week. So we're going through all of our preparations to see just where I might need him, and so he's been kind enough to call me to do a few games up at First Horizon Park now, I guess we should say.
I guess.
And he likes coming in the middle and doing it again. Well, it's changing.
First Tennessee is now
changing
First
their name to
Horizon.
First Horizon.
That's right, because they're changing banks.
Yeah.
Banks are changing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing is changing. And their mortgage division has been First Horizon for a little while, and they do so much business, in particular in Virginia and Mississippi, that it just made sense for them to give something that was not. I guess they felt from a marketing standpoint it didn't
Restrict them.
geographically, I guess.
Well, all right. Give me a prep day. What do you do to prep for football?
Prep day or prep week?
Well, actually, and I know talking to Bob
Yeah.
Kessling on several occasions, he and I have spoken a lot of times. I want to see if your prep week is the same as his. I've got his right here.
And I'll try to. And I'll do this quick as I can. Okay, let's say we play Saturday in Charlotte.
Yeah.
I'll give you this week because we have an open date next week. This past Sunday, 3 days ago, I went ahead and pulled Charlotte's 2 deep from their game against North Texas. And in my charts, I do my charts in my computer with number, name, height, weight, hometown, previous school. Then all the stats and notes and all that are written in. So anyway, I go ahead and do all my charts based on their 2 deep from last Saturday. I do that typically sitting at home watching the Titans games. I'll go ahead and it takes me about 2 hours to get that done, and I've got the 2 deep offense and defense, all that kind of stuff. Well, they all send out an update normally Monday or Tuesday of game week, which I got that yesterday. And so all I have to do is go back and make any changes off the 2 deep. Most of the time, you won't have more than 2 or 3 changes from one week to the next. But except normally after the first game, there's wholesale changes a lot of times. But so that's Sunday. Monday is we do coaches shows, weekly press conference with the head coach. If I get the updated 2 deep, I'll go ahead and do that on Monday or early Tuesday. Get my charts printed. Then on Tuesday is what I call stat day. I go through yearly and career stats for both teams, and I am handwriting all that stuff in. And if you saw my charts, colors and everything means something. I've got my own, just like Bob does, my own shorthand of what things mean. If they are written in a certain color or highlighted in a certain color, it means one thing or the other. Wednesday and Thursday are what I call notes days. So I'll spend, I try not to do the whole thing. It's more like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Don't try to cram all of it in. Wednesday, like tonight, when I get home from here, I'll go through our notes and go back through our charts and take things that are relevant off of the game notes that our athletic communications office puts out, and that will all get transferred over to my charts. Tomorrow I'll do the same thing with them. So I try to have everything done by Thursday night, which leaves me Friday to do whatever. Half the time, obviously, it's a travel day, and then Saturday mornings I get up and if I need to meet with the other broadcaster when we get there, we go over pronunciations and any other little notes, and I'll go through. Obviously, we're fortunate with the Google machine. We can look up newspapers and find articles and pull things from that. But I try to do it in pieces throughout the week. I don't know is that similar to what Bob does, but you know,
Pretty close.
yeah. We all have our own. There's no right or wrong way to do it, and you just do it different.
I like everybody else thought. Hell, you just walked in 5 minutes before the thing, sat down and talked.
Yeah.
Like I know better than that.
Well, I mean, and I've always said, I mean, and I've never done the NFL, but I've done a ton of high school games and a ton of college games. If you can do high school football effectively on the air,
do it well.
I'm saying if you can do, what I'm saying is if you can do high school football well, you can do anything, because the farther you move, the more information you have at your disposal. I know it never happened to you with Vance or anything, or chasing down rosters or anything like that. But as Maurice would tell you, I mean, chasing down rosters and stats when you're doing high school games is the biggest pain that you have most of the time.
Without question.
The pain that I have is getting that roster from the other team.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Prior to 5 minutes before kickoff.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because see, I mean, I've got all my Charlotte stuff already,
and
so
then Eddie's having to go over and say, "Well, how do you pronounce this guy's name?"
Right.
You know,
And
he's not from Santa Fe, obviously.
So that's exactly what I'm saying is that if you can do high school football well, that it gets easier as you go along. And I don't want to let that cat out of the bag, because Mike Keith and Joe Fisher and all my pals would shoot me if we let that secret out.
They get it all fed through their ear the entire time.
Yep, a lot of it. Yep.
Some of it they know, but some of it they don't.
I've got a great spotter who has been with us for 39 years.
Wow.
And he has the ability. He will take my charts about an hour prior to kickoff, and he'll go over in the coach's booth, because they're all down on the field. He'll get in there by himself. He has a photographic memory, and which I do not. and the way we go about it is I kind of handle who's got the ball, and I'll do that, and he talks into my ear. Sometimes way too much, but no.
Guilty.
Wayne's great, and I'll give him a hard time, because he just, whenever we get in somewhere in public, I go, Wayne, now you don't want to talk because you're just yakking in my ear the whole game, but he gives me the defense, and again, it's our own shorthand. He knows my cadence of my voice and knows when to pop a name into my ear. Or he will do a couple of different things, like let's say you have a ball carrier that gets hit, the ball comes loose, somebody jumps on it, he'll look at me and he'll go Brooks, and then I know that's Khalil Brooks that knocked the ball out, and he'll give me another name who I know recovered it. So I give him all the credit for making me sound somewhat smart on game days.
And Wayne Gross is a great guy.
He is an unbelievable guy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when I was telling you about my travel stuff, if I said, Wayne, I need somebody to ride with me to Conway, South Carolina. All right, what time we leaving? So
ready to go.
That's right. That's
Get
right.
the car.
That's right.
Could anybody else use your charts?
Yes, and I've given them out a lot.
No, I mean, with all your...
No, they would. Well, there's a couple of people I know that would have an idea what it was. what they were reading because, like in most of it's on stats. If it's in blue, it means that it's current year. If it's in red, it's career. And then if it's in green or purple or some other color, then it's typically a hero stat of some sort that they, 18 catches against Iowa or whatever. It can be that kind of thing. But then, things are highlighted, and just a lot of that is to separate thoughts, and, especially with the team notes, things like that. I've got there may be 10 or 12 different things over here, and they're all in different colors. Some of them may only take one line, but there may be something that takes two lines. But I know if it's in that same color, I need to read that second line before I start talking. So it's pretty interesting in to how you go about doing it, and it's funny when folks come in our booth, they're amazed at how quiet it is in there, and then all of a sudden a play starts and they hear all this stuff going on, and thinks we're a bunch of crazy people in there when they hear it.
It wasn't like that the other night with the Winchester folks. Jeez.
So let me.
I'm serious. I have never in my life heard broadcasters who were so loud that we couldn't hear ourselves doing the PA.
Oh, really?
No.
Maybe they were shouting back to Winchester.
Maybe.
No idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll call you out on the air if you're doing something wrong.
So there's your prep.
They were on a phone line and they were long distance.
What is your color guys prep
Party
for football?
Wes Counts, who held most every passing record at Middle until Brent Stockstill got there. Wes watches a ton of film, and I've been really, really lucky in the 11 years that I've been in the play-by-play chair. I've had two pretty good quarterbacks that have worked with me, Kelly Holcomb and
No, he wasn't in here.
and Wes Counts. and they both quarterbacks amaze me, and Vance is the same way. When he quarterbacked when we were in high school together, is quarterbacks have the ability. I mean, I can only focus on where the ball is, and I have a hard time seeing anything outside of that little area. Well, when an analyst like Wes or Kelly or Vance could do is come in and say, well, he went there, but he had, so-and-so on the sluggo, then they and somebody else on the skinny post. They can see all of that, and all I can do is I've got tunnel vision when I see it. So when people ask me how do you all go about it, the very simple way is I try to tell people what happened, let him tell them why it happened. So,
well, let's talk to Cat Ballou. Now let's ask him, how does it feel to be inducted into the Central High Athletic Hall of Fame?
Quite honored, to be honest about it. It's not something that I anticipated happening anytime soon, and I was caught off guard by that. But I think it speaks volumes about what our players were able to accomplish, and that's why I'm there. Our kids did a great job, at least some of the time.
Now you're on the selection committee.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so
did you recuse yourself?
Yeah, that's what I'm. Are you like the NCAA where you have to go out of the room when they talk about you, or how does that work?
Yes, I did. When all the nice people wanted to talk, they asked me to leave when they vote.
Okay.
The not so nice people said,
They just say it right in front of you.
Yeah, there you go. Of course, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But, that's kind of an oddity being on the committee. And I did not vote for myself, I'll say that. Although I told my family that's why I got in. I voted 23 times.
But that committee has expanded.
It has. It's really grown. I mean, people need to understand how much it took to get that going. It was kind of off and on the back burner for several years, and then it was probably 4 years from the time we started meeting regularly, write down all the bylaws and all that, and until we had the first induction last year. it was a long process, and it's something I'm glad you mentioned that it has been a growing thing number-wise, and that's what we've been trying to get from the beginning, and we're still looking for that. You know, people next spring will be able to make nominations through the Columbia Central Lions, Columbia Central High School webpage, and that's what we're looking for. You know,
Well,
we're trying to get a lot of people involved.
Here's what I want people to
Anybody can
understand.
vote
Exactly.
or nominate, I should say.
If you are unhappy that someone was not nominated for the Hall of Fame, nominate them. Don't
right.
get on Facebook and gripe about it. Where were the women? Where were the baseball players? Where were this? Where were that? You got to get off your tush and go nominate somebody.
I mean, and I was there this year and very impressed. I work on our Hall of Fame induction at Middle, and I can tell you this, and if for people who want to gripe about it, people who are involved in that process take it unbelievably serious.
As they should.
And for anybody who says, well, it's about time when somebody, gets in there, you will get in when you were supposed to get in, and you're not going to get left out. I mean, especially, I think this group has done an unbelievable job. When you look at who was in the original class, that's exactly who should have been in it.
Yep.
And now you look at this class that went in this year, that's exactly who should have been in it. And then next year's class, I was thinking on the way home, I started making notes in my head. Who did I think? Okay, who's next? And that's the kind of fun speculation. But it'll happen for a lot of folks who are very deserving.
And the great thing about Columbia Central Athletics is, you've got such a broad base of deserving individuals, and you kind of feel like you're playing catch up considering how long in athletic history Columbia Central has, and to just now be getting started. But man, it's like Chip said, when you start anticipating some of the folks, and you almost don't want to call names because if they're not in that 2020 class, it's a little bit of a disappointment. But I can
I've
think
got my list in my head.
I can think of 10 without even working hard that you'd kind of like to see in that class.
That's across all sports.
Oh, absolutely.
But I want to go back. When Vance was talking a while ago, how he would leave the room and everything when the vote's going. Are you trying to tell us there was some of these never Vancers on the?
No.
Never Vancers. I like that.
That's you hit it exactly right, Maurice. It's trying to cover over 100 years of athletics
Right.
into a select small group is very difficult. And I think every one of us here have been involved in Central Athletics can think of 10, like you said, real quick.
Yeah.
If we thought about it long enough, we'd probably come up. That list will be 30 or 40.
But the key to it is nominate these folks.
Yes, and back to the thing, we did have 2 women that went in
Yes,
last
we did.
year.
Yes, we did.
So and there is a we want more of that. We want a whole lot of people to nominate various individuals, which does make it even harder.
Right.
That's
But
right.
It should be a hard.
It should be hard, and it should be a hard process, and it should be hard to get in. Because, it's the Hall of Fame. It's kind of like they say about baseball. It's not the Hall of Very Good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
But personally, and
Yes, I was voted to the Hall of Mediocre.
I was pleased to see Jack Van Hooser
Yes.
go in particular for a couple of reasons.
What a story.
Yeah, no question. And when I became aware of him and what he had done and that kind of thing, it's really cool to see. And it's nice to be able to honor those people while they're here.
Yes.
And so it was really nice to see Mr. Van Hooser recognized, I think.
So for people that don't know, we have the regular category of athletes, players, coaches, administrators, or whatever. That would be people since the past Central High School was open, 1961 forward, and of course now we have
The quote unquote modern era.
Yes.
And then what they're doing,
61
Yeah,
equals
that's
modern. Yeah.
what they're doing also is bringing the Carver Smith folks over.
Yes, and now we
That
know
in
it's
'69 when they
Oh, that's
combined
awesome,
with Central
yeah.
High School.
Yeah.
That question came up. Willie White did
Yeah.
not go to Central High School,
Right.
and that's why. And that, he certainly.
But
was
look what he
outstanding.
influenced
Yes,
Central High School.
Oh, without question.
Candidate coming in, certainly no doubt about that. But there, the thing about getting people to nominate people, in particular the issue with women, is there's a great disparity in numbers there.
Yeah.
Because you look at women's sports,
Mm.
did not have, we didn't have hardly any in the beginning, and then we only had girls basketball for
For the
a long
longest.
time. And then added, softball and the other sports.
And tennis.
Really almost in recent, that's almost, when you look at 100 years, that's in recent times
Right.
that happened. And then, of course, we have the legends category as those before 61. And we need people involved because it's really hard to make it equal, but then you got people that are in that category of in between, really, the legends category. And some of them, we have a couple of candidates there that actually were in both periods, which is
Kind of straddled it,
yes,
huh? Yeah.
and certainly some deserving. But one thing I'm excited about going forward now, people like myself, coaches, administrators, and those folks had the opportunity to earn that over a lot of years. Now, as we get, into more, it's going to be a whole lot easier now for players to get in. Not that there won't be other coaches and administrators, but the numbers
Right, and
are working in favor going towards the players. now.
right, and here in the beginning, year one, year two, I mean, and I hate to use this talk show phrase, but the Mount Rushmore, or a couple of Mount Rushmores went in. I mean, Hardy Lloyd, Jim Cartwright had to be in the initial class. In Lindsey Nelson, in there. This year, I mean, you look at the folks who went in this year, including yourself, the accomplishments. You've got the number one high school athletic guy in the state. That's Bernard. And you've got Lee Fowler, who was, I mean, among many other accomplishments, was chairman of the NCAA selection committee. I mean, that's pretty strong. And then the other compliment is that the presentation, the dinner, and all of that, the culinary students did a great job with dinner that night. The marketing class did wonderful. It was a class operation. And then the one thing I really like is there's a permanent place for those plaques to be in. For people who come to a basketball game or whatever, from Franklin or wherever they come in there from, they look up there and they have to say, wow, when they see those plaques up there, the people who have made a huge name for themselves here at Columbia.
Roger.
I take a great deal of pride in being able to MC that event. And I write each and every one of those stories along with some help from Mo Patton because I borrow a lot of his information. But the one thing that scared me this year when I got my sheets was at the very bottom. It said 1952 championship team. That's all it said. So I thought, oh my, I'm in trouble.
I like how you went back and used the headlines from following each game that
right. Robert Elliott's packet. Each individual candidate to be inducted has a packet. In Robert Elliott's packet was this book that had been put together by one of his co-team members that had 51, 52, and 53 in it. Those all 3 years they were in there together. And all the headlines were in there from the Daily Herald, the Tennessean, and the Banner. And I said, "Go mine! I got this." So it was a really good night.
Yeah.
You talked about the production and talking to Roger White, the principal at Columbia Central, after the night was over with. That was one of the things I think he was proudest of was the degree of involvement that the current students had in putting it together. Awesome. Yeah, that's really good stuff.
Junior ROTC to to Caitlin Kinsler who sang. I mean, it's all student driven, which is great.
It really is. Yeah. And as you were talking about some of the people that went in, Lee Claiborne
Oh yeah.
Oh,
coached 44 years. I mean, that's something that you're never going to see, in this day and time. You're not going to see somebody come into coaching in 2019 and still be there in 2063. I mean, that's just not going to happen. It's a different ball game now.
Yeah, it was fun. I got to see so many people. Got to eat with Dolly Lloyd and Margie Bates and got my neck hugged by Nancy Cartwright and all those folks.
So did I.
Nancy still tells the story when Coach Cartwright had retired, and I would stop by their house a lot of times and just go visit a little bit. And there was this one time, and I was probably still in college at the time, and I'd go by and see Coach and talk to Nancy, and she was making, at Christmas time, she always made nuts and bolts, all the Chex Mix stuff. Well, I happened to be there one day, and she took a big pan of those out of the oven, and she's going to kill me for telling this story. But they went everywhere. I mean, she dropped it. And for 10 years after that, every time I saw her, Chip, I found some more of those the other day. But so we've always had that connection, and just gosh, it was so nice to see everybody, and somebody like Lee Fowler, who I constantly remind him every time I see him that he was a senior in high school when I was in first grade, and but when he was a hero. I mean, absolute hero in this town, and to see, and then later on to work for him when he was athletic director at Middle, and had watched him play in college and all that. It's funny. I mean, I hadn't seen him in person in a couple of years. I mean, we've talked on the phone a couple of times, but you walk up, there's Carol, there's the girls, and it's like, we just pick up a conversation like we had just stopped 10 minutes earlier, just about whatever. But and to see the pride in those folks who came back to town. I mean, that was a big deal for him. I mean, and he's been in a lot of high-level situations, but to be honored, was it Bon Jovi saying, about you coming home?
Who said you can't go home? Yep.
But you can. And for those folks, they did that night, and really, really proud of what Central's doing with that.
The one guy that loves to come back is Pat Quillen. He loves coming back because his dad was so big in coaching the 1952 team, and he's got so many stories that it's just interesting to listen to him talk.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. So I think we're going to, at some point, maybe take our camera up to Cookville where he lives and sit down and just have a chat with him.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, just put that on, put that on disc or put it on thumb drive or somewhere. Because those stories need to be preserved. Because he was telling some the other night, and I'm like, wow, I've got to get this on film. He's great guy. But there's so many stories out there.
It would be great to hear those.
Well, and stuff like that. We're in an era where a lot of that we can now preserve digitally, and
Sure.
And the question around here in this town now that Bob has passed, who's gonna fill his shoes? Because that's this town has so much history and pride. And the good thing is that he set up a system where somebody can come in. Will they ever be another one like him? Probably not. But that's he was the one who really, he and Jill Garrett probably place as much importance on our past in this town as anybody, and that's what's happened at Central and CMA and now Columbia Academy and all is as big a part of it as anything.
Right.
I got thinking the other day, the wife and I were talking, we were driving, I said, the schools that we went to no longer exist. Riverside no longer exists as far as the old school goes. Central and Whitthorne, and we knew downtown.
Kat and I did go to the new one for 2 years.
Did you? And I said,
we opened it up.
It's just all these schools that we went to just don't exist anymore. They're all new plants, but that's okay because progress is a good thing.
So they say.
All right, coming up, high school sports. We have the final week of high school football coming up on Friday.
Regular season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Columbia and Shelbyville. Tell me what you think.
I think if Columbia Central continues to play defense the way they have the last few weeks, you know, you have to kind of take the Page game out of the mix. But defensively, I think they're playing well enough to beat just about anybody they see. You know, Carter Sidlowski has really come on here down the stretch. David Bailey's just been the same David Bailey he's been for the last 4 years. Blake Simmons making plays on the back end. I like the way they're playing defensively. If they can get Christian Biggers or Kalen Hill, ideally both, back after missing last week. I'm not sure what's going to happen at the quarterback, whether Dane Sykes is back or whether they continue to roll with Brady McCandless, who I thought, from what I could tell, did a pretty good job up at Stratford. I mean, 7 of 11 for 92 yards, which was the most they've thrown for all year.
Under adverse conditions.
Under very adverse conditions, 2 touchdowns. And I don't think anybody else on that team can catch a touchdown pass except Blaine Davis. But, you know, Shelbyville has.
If you got the job to do and you can do
There
it,
you go.
that's a good one to do.
That's
right there.
wasn't that the knock on Chris Carter at one time? All he does is catch touchdown
That's
passes.
right, yeah.
But you know, Shelbyville has put a lot of points up. They've got a sophomore quarterback who apparently missed last week down at Franklin County. He's had mono, Cade Cunningham. So if he plays, don't let him breathe on you. But they put up some points. If Columbia Central can slow them down, I think they got a shot. Now, can they slow them down?
Good question.
It's guaranteed already.
They're in. They're in, but and it looks like they're going to go on the road under, you know, and barring a win, and I think somebody else has to lose. You know how that goes. You got to have some help. But
They'll be at Beach.
They're either at Beach or Gallatin. If they're 3 or 4, if they're 4, they go to Beach. If they're 3, they go to Gallatin. Those two just played last week. They were both undefeated at the time. So that's what you're dealing with. Beach won that game 14-10, and as has been pointed out to me, I don't think Central's ever beaten Beach in a postseason game. So,
Not to my knowledge.
well, you'd know.
No, sir.
Okay, so.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, you've not played them in the regular
Have we-
season.
yeah,
oh.
we've played.
Oh, did you? Okay. 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 So,
That is the one beach that Columbia Central
does not. Doesn't, yeah.
Hey, we want to change that trend.
There you go.
We want to start a streak going in the other direction.
Oh, do you?
Nice.
Okay. All right.
Well, there you go.
So we're going to storm the beach.
I don't really like
Marketing
beach
guru over there.
About once every 6 months, he comes
up with a
a
nugget, right?
Hey,
Storm
that was my job for several years.
What about other county teams? Mount Pleasant's pretty good, aren't they?
Mount Pleasant is in a interesting situation. They play at home Friday night against Moore County. They need to win, and then they need to see what happens in court with this Fayetteville situation. I'm not sure if
Right now they're back in.
right now they're back in. I'm not sure when that's going to go before a judge. Apparently, Fayetteville had a kid declared ineligible a couple of weeks ago by the TSSAA. Fayetteville got a restraining order to
Was
get.
that the one they changed numbers on?
But that was in
No,
St.
that was
Louis.
in St. Louis.
That was in St. Louis.
Yeah. No. This is a little bit less glaring, but no. So Fayetteville had to forfeit some games. Well, they went before a judge, got a restraining order to get back to the number 1 spot in Region 5 1A and get back into the playoffs. So now Mount Pleasant's playing for the number 4 spot and a playoff berth, as opposed to playing for possibly the number 3 spot and trying to stay away from undefeated Huntington in Region 6 1A. So yeah, it's an interesting situation that they've got, but they need to win regardless. And then the third local team is Columbia Academy. They're playing for the number 4 spot in their Division 2A region, which would allow them to host a game in the opening round. And if they lose, they'd go on the road somewhere.
And then Spring Hills is waiting for next year.
Well, I hope they don't start waiting too soon because they need to win at Lawrence County to avoid going 0-10. And I don't know when the last time is that Spring Hill has gone winless, but I don't think they want to answer that with 2019. So yeah, they don't want to start waiting for 2020 just yet. They still got some work to do Friday night.
Vance, you remember when only the district champion went to the playoffs?
Sure did.
Wow.
And there were only 3 state champions. Remember that?
Yeah.
I kind of like I like more state champions. That means I get more chances at TV games.
There you go. Because it's all about Chip.
No, not at all.
Revenue.
Paycheck.
I don't mind you getting games. 9 state champion is too many.
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
Get off my lawn.
The old man stuff.
Exactly.
All right, let's bring up we don't want to talk about Alabama. We know where they are. University of Tennessee.
Well, and
They dropped a
moved.
spot. They're number 2.
They're number 2.
No, well, that's different for them.
At least they got to work for something. They got to work to get that number 1 spot back.
Hey, they won 48-7 and dropped from first to second. That had been the first time in history that's ever happened. Although I do understand people thinking LSU's better than Alabama, but
Did you see the cake on Facebook today?
no, I didn't.
It was this is wonderful. It was a groom's cake. It was an Alabama groom's cake. Okay, it had the white icing around the sides and around the top. It was red. Had the A, and the groom starts cutting into it, but he's a little skeptical about cutting into this cake. But he cuts into the cake, and then the bride comes up and flips it. On the inside is purple and gold.
That's hard.
Somebody got him. Somebody got him bad. Yeah.
I got him good.
That's your wedding. That's harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got to wonder where's it go from there, huh?
If you're taking this rivalry into your wedding, jeez, Pete.
I was reading something this morning about a similar situation. He's a Georgia fan, she's a Tennessee fan. Some kind of way, she named their daughter Jennings, as in Jawan, and snuck it by him until he like,
Then
wait,
figured it out
yeah.
later. But the birth certificate's already printed.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, she got him good. College
We're
foot.
still not talking about Tennessee and how they're getting better.
Well, thank goodness.
Eddie?
Well, it's like this. We still got to win 3 more games to get bowl eligible.
3's better than 4, though.
Yeah. But you only got 4 games left.
Well, that's that's the exact situation we're in.
Right.
You know, like I said, but over the years, but you look at their schedule, and there's not a non-winnable game left on their schedule, and so I mean, and Jeremy's going to, he will be fine. I think. I mean, Jeremy knew him when he played.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did you deal with him?
A little bit. I mean, and he played a good bit as before he transferred to Alabama and finished up. But he's, to me, one thing it seems like to me is it seems like he is much more comfortable in his own skin and doing his weekly, all the stuff that he has to do every week now as a head coach. He looked very uncomfortable when he first started doing that.
I think he looked very uncomfortable because he was very uncomfortable.
But I think he's gotten a lot more confident in that, and I think he's going to be fine. And they just they showed this week that they've started accumulating some talent, but this past 2 weeks, and you can take them as an example, or South Carolina really is kind of the example, that there are a lot of good football teams out there. Not a ton of elite football teams out there, but there are a lot of good and talented football teams. South Carolina goes to Georgia and wins. How do they do that? Well, then they turn right back around and go to Knoxville and just get boat raced. How does that happen? And there's a guy on ESPNU radio I listen to a lot, Mark Packer, who's out of Charlotte, and he was had a caller call him today about that, and he made a great point. He goes, I mean, you've got 95 guys or 85 scholarship guys out there. He goes, you have no idea as a fan, how many of those guys had a chemistry test this week that had them up all night, or how many of them's girlfriend, gave them a hard time or whatever. I mean, they have lives just like everybody else, and they have a very a college athlete, in particular football players this time of year, they have a very scheduled day, and and it really helps them do what they want to do and get to where they want to be. But they're still humans, and you cannot. It is hard to be that good every time out, and sometimes it gets contagious.
Well,
Missouri's a huge example of that too.
Well, we as fans, it's easy for us to get down on somebody, but we also have to remember these are just kids.
That's right.
They're young men, but they're still kids.
And the only one in here who's a real coach, or has been a real coach. None of us are. We're all armchair coaches and quarterbacks and
right.
stuff. But fans will hang on to something all week. I mean, it just stew on it.
Some of them all year.
I mean, coaches and players, they're gone. I mean, it's done. I know in our case, our coach, they have practice on Sunday to get all that stuff out of the way. I mean, you go through your mistakes, address them, then you're done with that. You're on to the next thing.
Right.
Then by Wednesday, fans are still sitting around City Cafe. Well, by God, they didn't, whatever.
Billy Bob from Merv will be a cold call in.
Yeah.
Don't be upset.
But and I think that's why it's so important to and this sounds very, very cliche for players. I don't care where you are, coaches, wherever you are. You hear this cliche: trust the process, because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, take a breath.
Yeah.
Well, and I told people when they hired Jeremy Pruitt up there at UT, I said, we got to give him time. Yeah. You can't expect him to come in there overnight and turn this thing completely around, unless he's awfully lucky,
You're exactly right.
but
he didn't get lucky the first year.
No.
That's right.
And he's had a hard year this year. I told Dan and several other people, I said, let's give him at least 5 years. By that time, he's got all of his own recruits.
And most of the former coaches will have been paid by then.
Right. Right. Yeah, that time that money.
With the players.
Hey.
We don't have time.
The new NCAA, that's a whole different show. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole different show. We don't have time to go into that. But we got to give the man at least 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't be screaming and hollering and we need to fire him and all that stuff, because who you going to get to take his place?
There's not a coach in the country that would come in if you fired him
After 2 years. Yep.
Or 2 years.
Yep.
I mean, he didn't forget how to coach.
No.
Kiffin obviously would come back.
Jeremy's a good football coach. He'll be just fine. He's got Jim Chaney. Ran his magic a little bit this past week.
Right.
But if you look over the history of what his offense has done against Will Muschamp's defenses, it's pretty amazing how somebody can have somebody's number like that. But it's here we are. It's home stretch, 4 weeks left for everybody, and there's a championships, bowl berths. College football's fun in November.
Yep, it's all on the line this month.
And it is exciting that UT's football is on the rise. I hope it goes.
What?
I've always wanted to go back to the years where it's about Alabama and Tennessee.
Yeah, make it mean something again.
And I've always said that, as you look across the college football landscape, I think that there are certain programs that when they're good, college football is better across the board. I mean, Texas, Alabama, LSU, folks like that. Much as I hate to admit it, yeah. You know, USC, UCLA, Nebraska. When those teams are good, I just think there's a little bit more interest in the game in general. You know, because maybe those are the programs that we grew up watching and admiring grudgingly and that kind of thing. So, but I think college football will be better when Tennessee gets back to where they were.
High school athletics too, to get them back there. MTSU doing well helps.
And vice versa. I think if they would take a harder look at some of the high school athletes in this state, I think Jeremy's going to have to do a better job of recruiting in state as well.
Really and truly, that's the only negative I've had towards UT is I think that's been a problem for a long time. They can't find everything they need in Tennessee,
but they can find a lot of it.
right,
Well, I mean, if you just look, and I know Dan's getting ready to click the button on us, but I mean, just these past couple of recruiting classes, you look at some of the kids that are playing at SEC schools from Tennessee that aren't playing at Tennessee.
Right.
And it's a little frustrating.
Yeah.
You talking about clicking a button? We have no time restriction.
Oh, cool.
As long as we want. Say what we want. Do what we want.
But you got to ask your wife, right?
Yeah, she's got the pizza cooking in the other room. She's saying, "Where is that guy?"
Yeah, click the button then.